Hello once again, it's Matthew here from MatthewNorthMusic, and as ever, I say this at the beginning of every video, but just in case you've not seen one of my videos before, if you like the sort of stuff that I make videos about, be it electronics, music, guitars, hi-fi equipment, and and the occasional song, then please hit the subscribe button. It's completely free, and if you hit the little bell icon as well, then you'll be notified of any future videos. Now, today I'm going to talk about something that I briefly mentioned in the video I did a few videos back, and that was some of the strange and wonderful things that you find in the Lidl Superstore, which is a supermarket chain here in the UK and in Europe, and I believe in other parts of the world as well. And I mentioned that one of the things they had in there was a synthesizer keyboard that was only, well, a penny less than £20, and so I decided to buy one. So this is the 37 key 3-octave keyboard from Lidl Supermarket, and what I'm going to do is we'll unbox it and we'll fire it up and we'll see if it's got any decent sounds or not. But I think for £20 it's definitely worth investigating, so let's get this thing open. Here it is then in all its glory, in its fairly sturdy box. Let's have a look at the blurb. And it says it's compact, lightweight and cordless with LED display. It has 100 sounds, 100 rhythms and 10 demo songs for teaching yourself to play. It's got transposing built in, it's got fill-in rhythm variations, a record and playback, so it has some kind of sequencing, and it has some effects in it, sustain and vibrato. But here's something else that you don't see every day. It comes with the batteries. Let's get this open then, and I think it's basically just got a bit of tape at one end. And out it pops. A little bit of card. And here's our keyboard. Now, I don't know where our batteries are. Oh, here they are. So we've got a pack of 4 AA batteries there. And yeah, let's take this out. There's our keyboard. We've got a book of instructions that are in multiple languages. What does it say? How to put the batteries in. It's got its learning mode. And yeah, well, we'll get to that. So, I mean, it's all made of plastic. We've got a little slider there for the volume. We've got our record, play, start, stop control here, so that's our basic sequencer. We've got a bunch of buttons, number buttons there, which is quite nice because on some of these cheaper keyboards, the number buttons would be doubled up on as keys as well, but they actually have separate buttons. You've got 2 little speakers, which is nice. Then there's a list of our different sounds, demo tunes, and the drum patterns there. And let's have a look at the back, and we just have our battery compartment here. So it opens up like that. And if we look at the back here, you traditionally expect to see a headphone socket or a DC power connector, and this keyboard has neither. There are no, to what I can see, sockets anywhere. So if we were going to use this and do some recording with it, then we'd need to modify it. But I will take this apart and we will have a look inside. It's not bad really. I mean, it's got plenty of multi-timbre to it. In fact, if we try and see how many notes we can play at one time. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. It's got its usual sort of rhythm. So if we hit rhythm and then we pick a number like, I don't know, 24. And then you just hit the start button there. It's got that sort of standard sort of cheap drum machine sound. If I go to say 75, I don't know if you can change. Yeah, you can change it while it's playing. And that's not bad. I mean, for what it is, it's okay. But because we haven't got a way to plug it in yet, you're not going to hear the sounds. But you know, this one of the string sounds here, this is T84, which is in the strings 2 section. You know, that's not bad. But what we're going to do, I think, is take this apart and have a look inside and see if we can get some kind of line output from this keyboard. Well, we've got the keyboard here out in the shed, but I just need to show you something first. Well, as you know, I'm always being watched over by Paul and Debbie in my shed with my lovely signed photo that my dear friend Cara gave me last year, or the year before now, in fact. Anyway, I've got a new novelty in the shed, and this has come from the same person. I have an Ian Beale 2024 calendar. Just thought I had to show you this. How am I going to get sound out of this little device? Well, the obvious thing would be to maybe bypass the volume control. But here's the thing. If I press play a chord, and then I turn the volume down to nil, you can tell it took like a second or so for the volume to actually go down. So if I press it down here, then bring it up to full, it's like it's delayed, and that's because I think this has some kind of voltage controlled amplifier in here, so the volume actually isn't in real time, which means that's not a direct feed to the amplifier, so that's no good. The other snag we've got is if you put your ear to the speakers here, they're a little bit noisy, the amp's quite noisy, so we might have to put up with a bit of a extraneous noise. However, by the sound being quite loud still, with the volume down on its input, it should, you know, kind of counteract that. So what we're going to do is we're going to get the back off this. Right then, I've taken our batteries out, and we've got a load of little crosshead screws in here that I'm going to take out, and I'm going to pop all the screws into this little paint tub just because it's slightly easier. Now, it's got to be said with this keyboard, that was a lot of screws inside it. However, it does kind of suggest to me a little bit of build quality. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn it over and we'll lift the back off and see what happens. I think, yep, that's all the screws are out. Oh no, there's one more. There's one stuck here, look. Just take that one out. There we go, now it's coming apart nicely. And that's the inside. So let's take a closer look. Literally just about everything is on this board here. All the controls, all the electronics. You've got this ribbon cable here that's going to the keyboard matrix. You've got the LED display here, which has got 2 connectors going. I'm guessing that's going to be the data input, and this is probably power. And then we've got a switch here, which is our power switch here. So that's just going to feed our power from the battery pack, which is here. So that's our wire for the power. Now, it would be very easy to intercept that if we wanted to have a DC input. And there's actually quite a bit of space here. So it would be quite possible to use a 6-volt regulator and then have like a 9 or 12 volt DC input on the back, which I might do, but I'm not going to do that today. What I am interested in though is our speaker outputs here. We got this piece of plastic here, which is where ordinarily you would probably have your headphone and your DC power input sockets. And I think they may well have used this same casing for other keyboards, and that would be where they would have these things. So that's where we're going to mount our jack socket. Well, my first choice then was to use a 3.5-inch jack socket like this, which is a stereo jack socket. It's the only one I've got actually, it's 3.5mm. And I could screw that into the back of the plastic. However, it's not a brake jack, so if I wanted to turn the speakers off, I'd probably have to put a little switch in. Now, my other idea was to use one of these, just an ordinary 1/4-inch jack socket. Now, you think maybe that's a bit too big, but if we look at the actual casing here, I've just gone freehand to demonstrate, but in the actual back case, there's more than enough room to fit one of these sockets, and then I can use the wires here, I can extend them out to go to the socket from each speaker, and because it's a brake jack, it means that when there's nothing plugged in, it will be going to the speakers, and when it is plugged in, it can either be a headphone socket or a line output. So this is what I'm going to fit. There's our jack socket in place. The actual casing is so thin that I was able to just make a little pilot hole just holding a drill bit, and then I used one of these cone cuts just to widen the hole to fit the jack socket in, so it's all in place. So next thing to do is to wire it up. One thing I wanted to check was if this thing is actually stereo or if it's just got two speakers in it and it's actually mono. And what I've done is I've connected an ohm meter up to the positive output of this lead and the positive output of this lead. And if we go to our meter, it's showing some rather erratic numbers. If I just disconnect that and plug it in again. Yeah, it's saying it's about 5 ohms and it's going down. So I would say that's probably connected together and it's probably actually mono. And in fact, if I go into continuity test, yeah, it's connected. So it's actually all in mono, which is going to make it slightly more difficult, because if I've got to wire this in, I've still got to connect it to make it stereo as if I'm going to use headphones on this thing. So I'm going to kind of take that on board, but I'm going to wire it up as if it was actually stereo. As we look at it then, this is left, this is right. So if we flip it over, then they will be effectively the other side around. And this is how it's all been wired. If we look at this side, which is the right speaker, we've got the signal wire here going into the second position, or the ring of the jack socket. That's going through the jack socket, and when there's no jack in there, it comes out this side and the wire goes to the speaker. And I've done exactly the same on the other side. Okay, with our new socket installed and everything in place, let's plug it in and see what it actually sounds like. Well, this is, as they say, where the fun begins. I've got the keyboard here and I've got it plugged into the computer, and I've got Cakewalk fired up to record what comes out the keyboard. Now, I did do a test with some headphones, and I can tell you that the signal coming out of this is quite loud. So if you were to do this mod and use headphones, I would suggest using limited headphones, particularly if you're going to use this with kids playing it, because the level is very hot. Now, what I've done is I've got a stereo to phono adapter here that's then got to another adapter to go to a normal jack to be plugged into the system. And we just plug that into the back there, and it's all go. Now we have everything fired up, I can put the computer into record, and it's now going to record everything coming out the keyboard so you can hear it in quality while you're watching this video. If we look at this then, we see that we've got the sound banked into a variety of different tones, and there's 100 sounds altogether, and it starts with its piano sound. And what we'll do is we'll step through it and we'll hear different sounds as we go. Okay, well, this is our basic piano then. And you've also got two effects. You've got sustain and vibrato. If we hit sustain, it's a bit like reverb. Well, it's kind of got a sustain as well. And you've also got a vibrato sound. If you notice, every time you press a button on here, you get this little click that sounds a bit like a metronome. So that's our basic piano. I'm just going to turn the effects off and I'm going to step through. So this is a sort of electric piano. Vibraphone of some sort. Or electric piano. In fact, we're now into a bank called percussion. Quite like that metallic sound. So this is organ, that's number 16. Just checking that isn't got vibrato on. Oh, I had the vibrato on there. So those earlier sounds you heard with vibrato on. This is all guitar sounds. Now we're on to bass sounds. This is number 39, so now we're into strings. Oh, this is quite good. So this is now the ensemble. So we've got some timpani, strings again. They sound quite respectable to me, as do these. And if we had some sustain, that's not bad. This has almost got the sound of a mellotron choir about it. This sound that's got an eerie feel of it being a bit like the sound of the Fairlight from the early 80s. You could almost do art and noise with this. I really like that. I think that's worth the price of admission alone. What else have we got? So again, this is still in ensemble. Oh yeah. I mean, that's another sort of kind of Fairlight classic, really. The orchestral stab. So we're now in the brass sections. Well, that's not a bad sound. That's respectable. All these are currently reed pipes up to number 78. Well, that's not a bad one. It's got a bit of a sort of 80s Roland sound about it. So these are now our, where are we, number 80, so yeah, we're into synth sounds. So that one's 79, that's part of the synth sound. So that's a bit more DX7. Oh, now we're getting into the... I mean, that could almost be off a Korg M1 or a Roland D50 or something. See what it sounds like with sustain. And vibrato. Yeah, I quite like that one as well. That's a good sound. So that's number 81, 82. More strings. That's another real sort of 80s classic workstation sound. Again, a little bit Fairlighty, a little bit Mellotron. Now I'm sure I had this sound on something I've got. I think it might even be a preset on the Jupiter boutique thing. It's got a preset like that. So that's the end of strings 2, and now we're into effects. The steel drums are pretty good, but then steel drums have always been good on cheap keyboards, I don't know why. Wood blocks. Oh, here we go, so we got some... Now that's almost got a kind of a Lindrum feel about it. Yeah, they are actually pretty respectable sounds, to be honest. So there's only one word to describe that, that's the clangers. So we're almost at the end. Oh, this could annoy people. That telephone sound. And we're back to the beginning. So that's all our keyboard sounds. And I've got to say, I don't know what you think listening to that. And I know it's quite laborious, 10 minutes, but you get to hear all the sounds. I actually think amongst that lot, there's probably a dozen actually quite useful sounds. Now let's look at the rhythms. It's got this rhythm section, so we hit there and we're on number 25 and it sounds like this. And you've got a tempo control. And you can actually alter the volume of the rhythm compared to what you're playing. So yeah, you know, you've got various different rhythm tracks. Go to another one there. I mean, that could almost be the drum pattern for Emma by the Sisters of Mercy in 1983. Anyway, enough of that. Now, it does have a little sequencer thing built in as well. So if you go to the record mode, you can just play what you like. And then play it back. Now, once you've played that, it then goes back into the record mode again. So if you don't hit play and you start playing the keyboard again, going... then it will just play that, what you've just done. And it's also got a demo mode. And so in its demo mode, obviously it's multi-timbral, it's playing more than one instrument at a time. I don't think there's a way you can do that by playing into it, but it would be quite fun if you could, or if you could hack some way into this. But for 20 quid, I think this thing's extraordinary. Okay, sorry that was a little bit long, but I kind of thought if I'm going to do a demo of all the sounds, I may as well play all the sounds so you get to judge for yourself. But I'm pretty impressed on something that is so cheap, that is designed as a toy, but it actually does have some merit. And there's certainly some sounds on there that I would say are better than the equivalent sounds that were on things like the DX21 or 27, you know, those early sort of cut down versions of the DX7 and some of the other sort of early sort of mid-80s MIDI keyboards. I actually think this thing has some merit, and I would actually recommend this. If you wanted to have something to take apart and play with for 20 quid, you're not going to go wrong. And there's definitely legs on this to make a DC input modification. Now, you could just fit a normal DC socket and have it running at 6 volts with a 6-volt wall power supply. That would work fine. Or what I would probably do is to put a socket in there and add a 6-volt regulator to it. I'd probably bypass the battery compartment altogether, although you could keep it in there as well. But I don't think what you need to do, you need the power to come in and then go into the regulator and then go off to the rest of the circuit. You probably could wire the DC to go through that and to still be able to feed the battery through. I haven't quite thought it through. But if not, you could just fit a DC socket on the back and a little switch to go between internal and external power. Although, as I say, if you're only ever going to use this either at gigs or in the studio, then I would say just fit the DC connector, make it 9, put a regulator in, then you can use a 9 or a 12-volt power supply. It's not going to blow the keyboard up, and you've got a good working piece of kit. Now, the last thing I'm going to do is, what does this sound like if I was to record a piece of music, you know, only a minute or two long, just using the sounds on the keyboard? So that's what I'm going to do now. Okay, so I've kind of spent the last 45 minutes or so composing a piece of music. Obviously I've added effects, mostly reverb and echo, but here is something slightly ethereal that I have composed and performed on the Lidl Sheffield Keyboard and nothing else. So have a listen. Okay then, well, you may like that, you may not like that, but the point is this: you really can make anything out of anything if you really want to. And I think this keyboard, if you do not own any electronic keyboards at all and you're on the tightest budget going, I think you could create something with this. And I've just created something with that. Now, if I had recorded that in the 90s, that would probably have stood, as far as keyboard sounds are, as good as anything that could be done, because at the time synths were massively expensive, and to get some of the sounds I got out of this, you would have had to have paid literally thousands of pounds. I mean, yes, we've got soft synths, we've got plugins, and you can do anything you like with a computer, but sometimes it's nice to have hardware, and something like this I think you can have a lot of fun with. Anyway, hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please like and subscribe as always, and I'll catch you on the next one.